The Valkyrie observation team had been in orbit around Terrace 9 for 12 days. Their ship, hidden behind advanced cloaking technology, was undetectable to the primitive human sensors. 6 pairs of multifaceted eyes studied the holographic displays, showing the human settlement below. "They expand so quickly," said junior observer Krenlak, adjusting the view to zoom in on a group of humans constructing a new habitat dome. "It has been less than 30 days since their arrival, yet they have already established a functional colony." Ambassador Zelivor nodded, her scaled skin reflecting the blue light of the displays. "This is why the High Council insists on caution. Humans are an unknown factor in our equations. Their application to join the Galactic Confederation cannot be processed until we understand their true nature." The Valkyrie had discovered the human presence on Terrace 9 purely by chance. The planet had been marked for future study in their databases, but not immediate colonization. When automated sensors detected the landing of human ships, the High Council had immediately dispatched an observation team. The directive was clear: learn everything possible about these humans before revealing the existence of the wider galactic community. "Focus on the outlying areas," ordered Chief Scientist Naraketh. "Our records show several humans venturing beyond the safety perimeter each day. I want to know why." The holographic display shifted to show the dense crimson forests surrounding the human settlement. The vegetation of Terrace 9 was unlike anything on Earth. Tall, spiral-shaped trees with deep red leaves that absorbed the light of the planet's orange sun. Between these trees moved a solitary human figure. "Subject identified," announced the ship's AI. "Designation: Human Male 17. Previous observations indicate profession: Wildlife Specialist." "Enhance visual," commanded Ambassador Zelivor. The image zoomed in, revealing a man of average height with light brown skin and dark curly hair. Unlike the other humans who typically traveled in groups and carried weapons, this one moved alone through the forest. He carried only a small pack and what appeared to be recording equipment. "Name from human records: Elijah Winters," the AI continued. "Age: 34, Earth years. Specialization: xenobiology with focus on large fauna adaptation." "What is he doing so far from the settlement?" asked Krenlak. "Does he not fear the predators?" The question was valid. Terrace 9 was home to several dangerous predatory species, most notably the Nexus wolf, a 6-legged creature with razor-sharp quills and powerful jaws. The Valkyrie themselves had lost 3 research drones to these animals during previous unmanned surveys. "Humans display unusual risk assessment behaviors," replied Naraketh. "They often prioritize knowledge acquisition over personal safety. Continue observation." For several hours they watched as Elijah moved through the forest. He stopped, frequently to collect samples of plants and small insects, carefully storing them in containers from his pack. Occasionally he would speak into a small recording device, though the Valkyrie observers couldn't hear what he was saying from their orbital position. As the orange sun of Terrace 9 began to sink toward the horizon, Elijah started making his way back toward the human settlement, but then he stopped suddenly, crouching down behind a fallen tree trunk. "Motion detected ahead of the human," the AI reported. "Large life form approaching." The observers leaned forward as the sensors focused on the area in front of Elijah. Moving through the underbrush was an adult Nexus wolf. The creature was massive, standing as tall as a human at the shoulder, with muscular legs and a thick hide covered in protective quills. Its face featured 2 rows of sharp teeth and 3 yellow eyes positioned for perfect depth perception when hunting. "The human should retreat immediately," whispered Krenlak, though of course Elijah couldn't hear him. "That creature can tear through metal plating." But Elijah didn't retreat. Instead, he remained perfectly still, watching the predator with intense focus. The Nexus wolf moved with an uneven gait, favoring its right side. As it passed near a shaft of sunlight breaking through the forest canopy, the reason became clear. A deep gash ran along its left flank, still oozing violet blood. "The predator is injured," noted Naraketh, "likely from a territorial dispute with another of its kind. This may provide valuable observation data," said Ambassador Zelivor. "If the human encounters the wounded predator, we will learn more about their crisis response behaviors." As if hearing her words, the Nexus wolf suddenly turned its head toward Elijah's hiding spot. Its nostrils flared as it caught the human's scent. A low growl rumbled from its throat, and the quills along its spine raised in a threat display. "The human will likely use his communication device to call for armed assistance," predicted Krenlak. To the observer's surprise, Elijah did the opposite. He slowly stood up from his hiding place, making himself visible to the predator. The Nexus wolf snarled, baring its double row of teeth. Any Valkyrie would have recognized this as a final warning before attack. "What is he doing?" gasped Krenlak. "He has no defensive capabilities." Elijah raised both hands in a gesture that the Valkyrie recognized from their study of human body language. It was meant to signal peaceful intentions. Then, moving with deliberate slowness, he reached into his pack. "Is he retrieving a weapon?" asked Naraketh, leaning closer to the display. "2." Answer came when Elijah withdrew a package wrapped in reflective material. With careful movements, he unwrapped it to reveal what appeared to be food, some kind of meat ration from the human supplies. The Nexus wolf's aggressive posture intensified, its 3 eyes fixed on the food. "Fascinating," murmured Ambassador Zelivor. "He appears to be attempting to distract the predator to facilitate his escape." But once again, Elijah defied their expectations. Instead of throwing the food and running in the opposite direction, a logical survival strategy, he slowly knelt and placed the meat on the ground in front of him. Then, still moving with careful deliberation, he took several steps backward, but did not turn to flee. The Nexus wolf remained motionless, its quills still raised in warning. For long moments, predator and human regarded each other across the small clearing. Then, driven by hunger and the weakness of its injury, the wolf cautiously approached the offering. "The predator will attack once it consumes the food," predicted Naraketh. "This strategy merely delays the inevitable." But as the Nexus wolf devoured the meat, Elijah did something that none of the Valkyrie observers could comprehend. He began speaking to it in a soft, even tone. The audio sensors of their observation equipment couldn't pick up his words at this distance, but the effect on the predator was visible. Its quills lowered slightly, though it kept its eyes fixed on the human. When the meat was gone, the wolf remained in place, watching Elijah with what appeared to be wary curiosity rather than immediate aggression. "Is this some form of primitive dominance display?" wondered Krenlak aloud. "Unknown," replied Naraketh, "but the human appears to be reaching for something else in his pack." This time Elijah withdrew a small container and what looked like medical supplies. With the same slow, deliberate movements, he eased slightly closer to the injured predator. "Impossible," whispered Ambassador Zelivor. "He cannot be planning to—" But that was exactly what Elijah intended. As the Valkyrie watched in astonishment, the human began speaking again to the wounded Nexus wolf, edging closer bit by bit until he was within arm's reach of the dangerous creature. The wolf growled, but did not attack, perhaps too weakened by its injury to feel threatened by this strange, non-aggressive being. With movements that betrayed both confidence and caution, Elijah reached out toward the wolf's wound. The Valkyrie observers held their breath as Elijah's hand moved closer to the injured Nexus wolf. Ambassador Zelivor's fingers hovered over the emergency alert button. If the human was killed, protocol demanded they inform the settlement despite the risk of revealing their presence. "He will lose that hand," muttered Krenlak. No sentient being should approach a wounded predator. But the expected attack never came. The Nexus wolf growled deep in its throat, its 3 yellow eyes never leaving Elijah's face, but it remained still as his fingers gently touched the edge of its wound. The violet blood had begun to dry, creating a crusty layer over the deep gash. Remarkable restraint from the predator, noted Chief Scientist Naraketh. "Perhaps the injury has weakened it more than we thought." Elijah continued to speak in low, soothing tones as he examined the wound. From his pack he removed a small bottle and poured clear liquid onto a cloth. The wolf flinched when he touched this to its injury, baring its teeth in warning. But still, it did not attack. The human is treating its wound, Krenlak said in disbelief. Why would he waste medical supplies on a dangerous animal? Ambassador Zelivor tilted her head, a gesture of confusion among her kind. This behavior does not align with survival instinct. Perhaps it is some form of scientific curiosity. An experiment? For nearly 30 minutes, the Valkyrie watched as Elijah cleaned the wound, applied what appeared to be antiseptic gel, and finally covered it with a flexible bandage that adhered to the creature's hide between its quills. Throughout the process, he maintained a constant stream of quiet talk. His body language relaxed despite the obvious danger. When he finished, Elijah slowly backed away, gathering his supplies. The Nexus wolf remained where it was, watching him, with what the observers could only interpret as confusion. It sniffed at the bandage but made no attempt to remove it. Observation log day 12, Ambassador Zelivor dictated. Human male shows unexpected compassion toward apex predator. Purpose unclear, possibly reflecting cultural taboo against watching suffering, even in dangerous species. We'll continue monitoring this interaction if further contact occurs. As darkness fell over the Crimson Forest, Elijah finally turned and made his way back toward the human settlement. The Nexus wolf watched him go, then limped in the opposite direction, disappearing among the trees. Switch to settlement monitoring, ordered Ambassador Zelivor. I want to know if he reports this encounter. The holographic display shifted to show the interior of the human base. They watched as Elijah entered through the main airlock, nodding to the security personnel on duty. He went directly to his personal quarters where he began uploading data from his recording devices to the colony's shared database. However, the Valkyrie noted that he included only information about plant and insect specimens. There was no mention of the wounded predator. He is concealing the encounter, observed Naraketh. This suggests he knows such contact would be discouraged by his peers. Or perhaps he wishes to continue the interaction without interference, suggested Ambassador Zelivor. We should maintain focus on this human in coming days. Her prediction proved correct. Early the next morning, even before the orange sun of Terrace 9 had fully risen, their sensors detected Elijah leaving the settlement. He carried a larger pack today, and his path through the forest was direct and purposeful. He seeks the predator. Again, said Krenlak. This behavior defies logical explanation. The human moved with confidence through the crimson trees, occasionally consulting a small device in his hand. The Valkyrie recognized it as a tracker of some kind. Had he placed a monitoring device on the Nexus wolf? Their sensors hadn't detected such an action, but it would explain his ability to locate the creature. After approximately 1 hour of walking, Elijah slowed his pace and began moving more cautiously. The ship's sensors detected the Nexus wolf. Before the human did, it was lying beneath a fallen tree approximately 50 meters ahead, its injured side facing upward. The predator appears to have claimed territory near the area of their previous encounter, noted Naraketh. Its movement is still impaired by the injury. Elijah approached slowly, making enough noise to alert the wolf to his presence rather than startling it. The creature's head rose sharply, nostrils flaring as it caught his scent. A low growl rumbled from its throat, but it was noticeably less aggressive than the previous day. Fascinating, whispered Ambassador Zelivor. It recognizes him. Once again, Elijah spoke to the wolf in soft tones as he approached. From his pack, he removed a package similar to the one from the day before. The smell of meat reached the predator's sensitive nose, causing it to rise to a half-standing position despite its injury. This time, instead of placing the food on the ground and backing away, Elijah held it in his outstretched hand. The observers watched in astonishment as the Nexus wolf limped forward, its eyes fixed on the offering. With obvious caution, the creature stretched its neck forward and took the meat from the human's hand with surprising gentleness. This contradicts everything we know about Nexus wolf behavior, said Chief Scientist Naraketh, his voice reflecting both professional interest and personal amazement. These creatures have never shown capacity for trust, especially across species boundaries. While the wolf ate, Elijah slowly reached toward his pack again. The predator tensed, but continued eating. From the pack he removed fresh medical supplies. When the meat was gone, he held out another small piece, but this time kept it just far enough that the wolf had to move closer to him to take it. He is using sustenance as positive reinforcement, realized Naraketh. A behavioral modification, technique. Once the wolf was close enough, Elijah began examining yesterday's bandage. The wound beneath looked cleaner, the edges already beginning to heal. He applied fresh medication and a new covering, his movements gentle but confident. Throughout the procedure, he continued providing small pieces of meat as rewards for the predator's compliance. It is almost as if, Krenlak hesitated before continuing, as if he is attempting to form a bond with the creature. Impossible, stated Naraketh firmly. The neural pathways of Nexus wolves are not structured for social bonding outside their own species, and even within their species they are largely solitary except during mating seasons. Yet the evidence before them suggested otherwise. When the treatment was complete, Elijah sat on the ground nearby, maintaining a respectful distance but making no move to leave. After a few minutes, he took out his recording device and began speaking into it, occasionally glancing at the resting predator. The ship's AI enhanced the audio, allowing them to hear his words for the first time. Day 2 with subject NW1, whom I'm calling Max for now, Elijah was saying. Wound is responding well to treatment. Minimal sign of infection. Subject displays remarkable intelligence and seems to understand that I'm helping. Traditional xenobiology texts characterize Nexus wolves as purely instinctual creatures, but I'm observing clear signs of reasoning and memory. He named it, said Ambassador Zelivor, her tone unreadable. This suggests he views it as an individual, rather than simply a member of a species. And he believes it possesses higher cognitive functions than our research indicates, added Naraketh. Either our data is incomplete, or the human is projecting qualities onto the animal that do not exist. For several hours, Elijah remained near the wolf, sometimes recording observations, sometimes simply watching. The predator dozed but remained aware of his presence, occasionally opening its eyes to track his movements. This behavior reminds me of something, said Ambassador Zelivor slowly. In our historical archives, there are records of pre-space Valkyrie cultures that kept smaller animals as companions, but never predators, never creatures that could harm them. Are you suggesting the human is attempting to domesticate a Nexus wolf? Asked Krenlak incredulously. Before she could answer, Elijah stood up, gathering his equipment. The wolf raised its head, watching him intently. The human said something to it, a farewell perhaps, and began walking back toward the settlement. After a moment's hesitation, the Nexus wolf rose to its feet and began following him at a distance. Elijah noticed the Nexus wolf following him about halfway back to the settlement. He stopped and turned, causing the predator to freeze in place. For a long moment, human and alien creature regarded each other across the clearing. Well, look at you, Elijah said quietly. Decided to come along, huh? The wolf tilted its head, its 3 yellow eyes fixed on Elijah with what seemed like curiosity. It made no aggressive moves, despite being well enough to attack if it wanted to. In orbit above, the Valkyrie observers watched the scene with growing fascination. This exceeds all predicted behavioral patterns, said Chief Scientist Naraketh. The predator should be returning to its territory now that it can move better. Instead, it follows the human. Ambassador Zelivor leaned closer to the display. Is this common among humans? Do they often form connections with dangerous wildlife? Our research on their home planet suggests they domesticated several species, replied Naraketh. But those were gradual processes over many generations, not a single individual in days, and none of those species were apex predators of this size. On the surface, Elijah had made a decision. He reached into his pack and took out one last piece of meat. He placed it on the ground between them. You can't come all the way back with me today, buddy, he said as the wolf cautiously approached the food. My colleagues wouldn't understand, but I'll see you tomorrow. The Nexus wolf consumed the offering quickly, then looked up expectantly. Elijah shook his head. That's all for now. Go on back. Go home. He made a gentle shooing motion with his hands. The wolf didn't move at first, but when Elijah turned and continued walking, it remained behind. After watching him for a few moments, it turned and limped back into the forest. Note this behavior, instructed Ambassador Zelivor. The human seems to recognize that bringing the predator to the settlement would be problematic. He is establishing boundaries in their interaction. But why continue the relationship at all? Asked Krenlach. What benefit does he gain? I am beginning to think this is not about benefit, said Ambassador Zelivor slowly. At least not in terms we would recognize. The next morning followed the same pattern. Elijah left the settlement early, carrying food and medical supplies. The Valkyrie observers tracked him as he made his way to where the Nexus wolf had last been seen. This time, the predator was waiting for him in the same clearing as the day before. Recognition and anticipation, noted Naraketh. The creature expected his return. Over the next 5 days, the Valkyrie documented a remarkable transformation in the relationship between human and predator. The wolf's wound healed rapidly under Elijah's care. By the 6th day, it was moving normally, with only a faint mark on its flank to show where the injury had been. Yet instead of returning fully to the wild, the creature continued to meet Elijah each morning. Their interactions grew more comfortable. The human would bring food, check the healing wound, and then spend hours simply sitting near the predator, sometimes talking to it, sometimes working quietly on his data recordings. On the 7th day, something new happened. When Elijah arrived at their meeting place, the Nexus wolf approached him directly, without waiting for food to be offered. Then, to the astonishment of the watching Valkyrie, it pressed its massive head against the human's hand. Is it requesting physical contact? Whispered Krenlach in disbelief. Elijah seemed equally surprised. He remained still for a moment, then slowly began to stroke the wolf's head, carefully avoiding the sharp quills. The predator's eyes half closed in what appeared to be pleasure. This is pair bonding behavior, stated Naraketh. We've observed it between members of their own species, but never directed at another life form. Update the report to the High Council, ordered Ambassador Zelivor. Humans appear capable of forming emotional connections with predator species through consistent care and positive reinforcement. This ability was not mentioned in their application to the Confederation and may represent a unique evolutionary adaptation. That evening, when Elijah returned to the settlement, the Valkyrie noted a change in his routine. Instead of going directly to his quarters, he sought out another human, a female with dark hair who worked in the xenobiology lab. Can we listen to this conversation? Asked Ambassador Zelivor. The ship's AI enhanced the audio feed from the settlement's common area, where Elijah had found his colleague. Olivia, can I talk to you about something? Elijah asked as he sat across from her. It's about a research project I've been working on. The woman, Olivia, looked up from her data pad with interest. Sure. Your solo forest excursions, right? Found something interesting? Elijah glanced around to make sure no one else was listening closely. Very interesting. I've been studying a Nexus wolf. Olivia's eyes widened. Those things are dangerous, Eli. Security won't be happy if they find out you're getting close to the local apex predator. That's just it, said Elijah, leaning forward. I don't think they're as mindlessly aggressive as the initial survey suggested. This one was injured. Territorial fight, probably. I've been treating its wound. You've been... Olivia cut herself off, lowering her voice. You've been treating a wounded Nexus wolf? Are you insane? Maybe a little, he admitted with a small smile. But Olivia, it's worked. The wolf is almost completely healed, and it's not showing any aggression toward me. In fact, it's showing behaviors I'd classify as social bonding. Olivia stared at him. That's impossible. The preliminary studies showed they're solitary hunters with minimal social structure outside mating and cub rearing. I know what the studies say, but I'm telling you, this wolf, I call him Max. He's smart, really smart. And he seems to recognize that I helped him. The Valkyrie observers watched as Olivia's expression shifted from skepticism to cautious interest. "You have evidence." "I assume?" Elijah nodded. "Data recordings every day. I haven't uploaded them to the main system because I didn't want security shutting me down before I could complete the observation cycle." "Smart," she agreed. "Lisa would have a fit if she knew." "Which is why I came to you first," said Elijah. "You're the only other xenobiologist here who might understand what I'm trying to do." Olivia was quiet for a moment, thinking. "Show me your recordings. If what you're saying is true, it could change everything we thought we knew about the dominant predator species on this planet." "There's something else," Elijah said, his voice even lower now. "I want to try bringing him back to the perimeter, not inside obviously, but close enough that we could set up proper observation equipment. Study him more thoroughly." "Now I know you're crazy," said Olivia, but there was an excited gleam in her eyes. "But if you really have formed some kind of bond with this creature, it would be an incredible research opportunity." In the observation ship, Krenlak turned to Ambassador Zelivor. "The female seems receptive to the idea. Does this mean humans as a species share this strange affinity for predators?" "It suggests the trait may be common, at least among their scientists," replied the ambassador. "This bears further observation. If humans bring their affinity for dangerous species into the Confederation, it could have profound implications." Next morning, 2 humans left the settlement and headed into the Crimson Forest. Elijah led the way, with Olivia following close behind. Her expression showed a mixture of scientific curiosity and nervous tension. "I still can't believe I let you talk me into this," she said as they walked. "If that thing eats you, I'm not explaining it to Lisa." Elijah laughed. "Max won't eat me, you'll see." As they approached the usual clearing, Elijah called out softly, "Max, you here, buddy? I brought a friend today." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, from between the crimson trees, the massive form of the Nexus wolf appeared. It moved, with the fluid grace of a predator in its prime, no sign of injury in its gait. Its 3 eyes scanned the clearing, immediately focusing on the newcomer. Olivia froze. "Eli," she whispered. "It's looking at me like I'm dinner." Elijah stepped forward quickly, placing himself between Olivia and the Nexus wolf. "Easy now," he said to both of them. "Max, this is Olivia. She's a friend." The wolf's quills rose slightly along its spine, a sign of alertness rather than aggression. Its 3 yellow eyes remained fixed on Olivia, who stood perfectly still behind Elijah. "Talk to him," Elijah encouraged her. "Let him get used to your voice." "Talk to him," Olivia whispered. "What do I say to an alien predator?" "Anything. Just keep your voice calm and even." Olivia swallowed hard. "Hello, Max," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "Nice to meet you." "Please don't eat me." Elijah laughed softly. "That's a start. Now watch this." He reached into his pack and pulled out the usual wrapped package of meat. At the familiar sight, Max's attention immediately shifted. His quills lowered, and he took a step forward. "See how he recognizes the food package?" Elijah said. "He's made the connection between this specific item and feeding time. That shows advanced associative learning." Olivia watched in amazement as Elijah unwrapped the meat and held it out. Max approached with no sign of aggression, carefully taking the offering from the human's hand. "Incredible," Olivia breathed. "The preliminary studies indicated these creatures would never accept food from another species. The risk assessment, centers in their brains were thought to be too dominant." While Max ate, Elijah reached out and gently touched the healed area on the wolf's flank. "The wound has closed completely. No sign of infection or inflammation." "You really did it," said Olivia, her scientific curiosity overcoming her fear. "You formed a bond with an apex predator in less than 2 weeks." In orbit, the Valkyrie observation team continued their monitoring of the interaction. Ambassador Zelivor had called in additional specialists from their ship's crew to witness this unprecedented event. The second human displays initial fear, followed by acceptance, noted behavioral analyst Trev Moore. This suggests their species has neurological wiring that allows rapid adaptation to potentially dangerous situations. More importantly, added Naraketh, it confirms this behavior is not unique to the first human. Others of their kind can recognize and appreciate the significance of forming connections with predator species. Down on the surface, Elijah was holding out a small piece of meat toward Olivia. Here, offer it to him. Her eyes widened. You want me to feed it? Him, not it, Elijah corrected gently. And yes, it's the fastest way to establish trust. Olivia hesitated, then took the meat, with a trembling hand. Max watched her intently, his three eyes unblinking. Hold it flat on your palm, fingers together, instructed Elijah, and try to relax, he can sense your fear. That's not helping me relax, Olivia muttered, but she did as instructed, extending her hand slowly toward the massive predator. Max studied her for a long moment, then cautiously approached. His nostrils flared as he sniffed at her hand. With surprising delicacy for such a large creature, he took the meat from her palm, his teeth never touching her skin. Olivia let out the breath she'd been holding. Oh my God, she whispered. That was amazing. He's gentle, said Elijah with obvious pride. Much more careful than he needs to be. That shows consideration. He understands we're more fragile than he is. For the next hour, the two humans observed the Nexus wolf, with Olivia recording notes and Elijah explaining his observations from the past 2 weeks. Max remained nearby, sometimes watching them with interest, sometimes exploring the edges of the clearing. What's your end goal here? Olivia asked eventually. You've proven they can form bonds with humans, but what next? We can't exactly keep a pack of Nexus wolves as settlement pets. Elijah's expression grew more serious. I think we've been approaching colonization all wrong. Instead of seeing the native predators as threats to be eliminated or avoided, what if we could form mutually beneficial relationships with them? You're talking about domestication? Not exactly. Domestication implies ownership and control. I'm thinking more of an alliance. He gestured toward Max, who was now lying comfortably a few meters away. These creatures are perfectly adapted to this environment. They know which areas are dangerous, where to find water, how to predict the weather patterns. We could learn from them. In the observation ship, Ambassador Zelivor leaned forward with interest. This philosophy differs markedly from standard colonization protocols, she said. Most spacefaring species attempt to reshape new worlds to match their homeworlds, not adapt themselves to existing ecosystems. It would never work with truly aggressive species, pointed out Krenlak. Yet it appears to be working here, replied the ambassador. Observe how comfortable the predator has become around both humans now. On the ground, Olivia was considering Elijah's words. Security won't like this idea. The protection protocols call for keeping dangerous wildlife away from the settlement, not inviting it closer. That's why I need your help, said Elijah. With both of us presenting the research, they might listen, especially if we can demonstrate how docile Max can be. Before Olivia could respond, a sharp beep came from her communication device. She checked it and frowned. Speaking of security, that's Lisa. All personnel are being called back to the settlement immediately. Why? What's happened? Doesn't say. Just says it's urgent. Elijah looked at Max, who had raised his head at the electronic sound. We have to go back, he told the wolf, as if the creature could understand him. But we'll return tomorrow. As they gathered their equipment, Max rose to his feet and moved closer to Elijah. When the humans began walking back toward the settlement, the wolf followed. Eli, said Olivia with concern. He's coming with us. Elijah stopped and turned to face Max. Nobody. Not today. It's not safe. The wolf continued forward, stopping only when it was directly in front of Elijah. Its behavior showed no signs of aggression, only what appeared to be determination. I don't think he's going to stay behind, observed Olivia. What do we do? Elijah considered the situation. The settlement is on high alert for some reason. If security spots a Nexus wolf approaching, they might shoot first and ask questions later, not to mention the panic it would cause among the colonists," added Olivia. In the observation ship, tension was rising as well. "This could be a critical incident," said Ambassador Zelivor. "If the Predator enters the human settlement, it will provide valuable data on their crisis management and interspecies integration capabilities. It could also result in the death of the Predator," noted Naraketh, "which would be unfortunate after documenting such a unique relationship." On the surface, Elijah had made a decision. He reached into his pack and removed a length of synthetic cord. While Olivia watched in amazement, he fashioned it into a crude harness and collar. "You can't be serious," she said. "If he's determined to come with us, this is the safest way," replied Elijah. "At least it will show the others that he's under some kind of control." Carefully, he approached Max with the makeshift harness. The wolf tensed initially as Elijah placed it over his head and around his massive chest, but made no move to resist. "Can't believe this is happening," muttered Olivia. "We're taking an apex predator back to a human settlement on a leash." "Not a leash," corrected Elijah, as he tested the harness to make sure it was secure but comfortable. "A symbol. This shows everyone that Max is choosing to cooperate with us." He looked into the wolf's 3 yellow eyes. "Ready for a big adventure, buddy?" In response, Max pressed his head against Elijah's chest in what was unmistakably a gesture of trust. High above, the Valkyrie observers prepared for what might be the most significant event in their mission so far. "Alert all monitoring stations," ordered Ambassador Zelivor. "I want every angle of this recorded. The High Council must see exactly how these humans integrate a dangerous predator into their society." With Olivia walking nervously beside him, Elijah led Max out of the forest and toward the settlement, where the day's dramatic events were about to unfold. As Elijah, Olivia, and Max approached the edge of the forest, the human settlement came into view. The collection of habitat domes and research facilities was surrounded by a high perimeter fence designed to keep out Terrace 9's dangerous wildlife. Security towers rose at regular intervals, equipped with both cameras and defensive weapons. "This might be the worst idea you've ever had," muttered Olivia, eyeing the settlement nervously. "Maybe we should leave him here and come back after finding out what the emergency is." Elijah shook his head. "Look at him. He's calm. And I don't want to break the trust we've established." Max walked steadily beside Elijah, the makeshift harness fitting snugly around his powerful chest. The Nexus wolf showed no signs of stress or aggression, though his 3 yellow eyes scanned the unfamiliar structures ahead with evident curiosity. In orbit, the Valkyrie observation team had redirected all available sensors to monitor the situation. "Remarkable," said Ambassador Zelivor. "The Predator displays none of the territorial aggression we would expect when approaching such unfamiliar structures. The bond with the human appears to be overriding its natural caution," noted Chief Scientist Naraketh. "This suggests a level of trust we've never observed between different species on this planet." As they neared the perimeter fence, an alarm suddenly blared from the settlement. Red warning lights began flashing along the fence line and security towers. "That's not good," said Elijah, tensing. Beside him, Max growled softly, responding to the human's sudden anxiety. Over the settlement's communication system, a tense voice announced, "Attention all personnel. Nexus wolf pack detected approaching the southwest quadrant. All non-security staff proceed to designated shelters immediately." "This is not a drill." Olivia looked at Elijah with wide eyes. "A pack? That's the emergency?" "Southwest quadrant," Elijah repeated, pointing in the opposite direction from where they stood. "That's why Max has been so determined to stay close. He must have sensed them coming into his territory." At that moment, the main gate nearest to them began to open. A security team emerged, led by a tall woman with short gray hair and a determined expression. She carried a high-powered rifle and was flanked by 4 similarly armed guards. "That's Lisa," whispered Olivia, "head of security, and she does not look happy." Before they could retreat or explain, Lisa spotted them. Her eyes widened in shock, At the sight of Elijah with the harnessed Nexus wolf, she raised her rifle instantly. "Elijah, step away from that creature now," she shouted. Behind her, the other guards raised their weapons as well. "Wait," Elijah called back, raising one hand while keeping the other on Max's harness. "He's not dangerous, this is my research subject." Max tensed beside him, sensing the threat. A low growl rumbled from his throat, and his quills began to rise along his spine. "Easy, buddy," Elijah said softly. "They're just scared. Stay calm." In the observation ship, Ambassador Zelivor leaned forward. "This is a critical moment. How the humans resolve this conflict will reveal much about their species' approach to unexpected situations." On the ground, Lisa had not lowered her weapon. "I don't know what insanity you've been engaging in, Elijah, but that animal is a threat to this settlement. The entire southwest perimeter is under attack by a pack of these creatures. We've had 3 barriers breached already." "That's why he's been staying close to me," Elijah explained quickly. He sensed his rivals moving into the area. "Lisa, please lower your weapon. You're making him nervous." "I'm making Ite nervous?" Lisa said incredulously. "You've brought an apex predator to our doorstep during a security emergency." Olivia stepped forward cautiously. "Lisa, I've been observing Elijah's work with this creature. He's established a remarkable bond. The wolf is responsive to his commands and shows no aggression toward humans." Lisa's eyes narrowed. "You knew about this, Hammond? And you didn't report it?" Before Olivia could respond, a new alarm sounded. One of the guards touched his earpiece, then turned to Lisa with an urgent expression. "Ma'am, the pack has broken through the outer fence in Section 7. They're inside the perimeter." Lisa cursed under her breath. "All units to Section 7 now. We need to contain them before they reach the residential domes." As the security team turned to rush back into the settlement, Max suddenly raised his head, ears forward, quills fully extended. A series of distant howls echoed from the direction of the breach. "He hears them," said Elijah. Then his eyes widened in realization. "Lisa, wait, Max can help." "This is not the time for your science experiments, Winters," Lisa shouted over her shoulder. "No, listen to me," Elijah insisted, jogging after her with Max keeping pace beside him. "These wolves are territorial. They're attacking because they've expanded into what was Max's territory. He can challenge them." Lisa paused, looking skeptical but desperate for options. "What are you suggesting?" "Let me bring him in. Let him confront the pack. They'll recognize him as the dominant predator from this region." In orbit, the Valkyrie could hardly believe what they were witnessing. "The human intends to use one predator to drive away others," said Krenlak in amazement. "Is such cooperation even possible?" "We are observing something unprecedented," replied Ambassador Zelivor. "A cross-species alliance against a common threat." On the ground, Lisa made her decision. "Fine, but my team keeps weapons ready, and you stay back behind our lines. If that thing turns on us or joins its own kind, I won't hesitate to put it down." Elijah nodded. "Understood. But that won't happen." They rushed through the settlement to Section 7, where chaos had erupted. 5 Nexus wolves had breached the perimeter and were attacking anything that moved. Colonists fled toward the central buildings while security personnel attempted to corral the predators with sonic barriers and targeted shots. Lisa directed her team into position, then turned to Elijah. "Now what?" Elijah knelt beside Max, looking directly into the wolf's 3 yellow eyes. "I need you to help us, buddy. Those are the ones who hurt you before, aren't they?" Max's attention was fully on the other wolves, his body tense and ready. "Can he really understand you?" asked Lisa skeptically. "He understands enough," replied Elijah. He removed the harness from Max's body. "Go on," he said softly. "Show them this is your territory now." For a heartbeat, the Nexus wolf remained motionless. Then, with startling speed, he bounded forward, toward the invading pack. The Valkyrie observers watched in awe as Max confronted the 5 intruders. He was larger than any of them, his quills fully extended to make him appear even more imposing. His roar echoed across the settlement, a clear challenge that needed no translation. The pack hesitated, clearly not expecting to face one of their own kind allied with the humans. Max charged the nearest wolf, bowling it over with his superior size and strength. The other wolves circled cautiously, uncertain how to respond to this unusual situation. "It's working," breathed Olivia, watching from behind the security line. Max drove the first wolf back toward the breach in the fence, then turned to face the others. One by one, he confronted each intruder, not killing but clearly establishing dominance. The pack gradually retreated, unwilling to face this unusual alliance of human and predator. Within minutes, the invading wolves had been driven back beyond the perimeter. Security teams quickly moved in to repair the breach while Max stood guard, his massive form silhouetted against the setting orange sun of Terrace 9. When it was over, Elijah approached his friend, kneeling beside the Nexus wolf and checking him for injuries. "Good job, buddy," he said softly. "You saved a lot of lives today." Lisa walked up slowly, her rifle now lowered. She looked at Max with a mixture of wariness and newfound respect. "I've never seen anything like that," she admitted. "You were right, Winters. He understood exactly what needed to be done." In orbit, Ambassador Zelivor was already dictating her final report to the High Council. After extensive observation, I can confirm that humans possess a unique ability among spacefaring species. They form genuine partnerships with predators, based not on dominance but on mutual trust and respect. This trait alone may justify their admission to the Galactic Confederation, as it suggests they may be able to forge alliances where others see only threats. 3 days later, a formal meeting was convened in the settlement's main hall. Elijah stood before the colony's leadership council, with Olivia beside him presenting their research findings. Outside the transparent walls visible to all, Max lounged comfortably in the shade, now wearing a properly constructed harness with the colony's insignia. "What we witnessed was not just a scientific breakthrough," concluded Abigail Rogers, the settlement commander. "It was a new paradigm for colonization. Instead of fighting against the native ecosystem, we can work with it, even its most dangerous elements." As the council voted unanimously to establish the Nexus integration program with Elijah as its head, none of them were aware of the cloaked ship in orbit, or that their groundbreaking approach to coexistence had just secured humanity's place in a much larger galactic community. In the observation ship, Ambassador Zelivor gave the order to break orbit. "Our assessment is complete. The humans have proven themselves worthy of consideration. They do not merely conquer new worlds, they form alliances with them, one species at a time." As the Valkyrie ship disappeared into the stars, Elijah and Max stood at the edge of the settlement,